Hi guys, so it's Britt from Montreal Healthy Girl, and today I'm doing a super important video. It's a request video. It's been due for a while. I actually have been putting off doing it because it's a very, very important topic. I wanted to be sure that I wasn't too controversial with the way that I shared this information with you, and I also wanted to be sure to cover everything about this topic because it is such a very important one. So today we're going to talk about circumcision and the truth about circumcision, the information and the facts that we're not told before we make these decisions on behalf of our children, our sons. So I wanted to speak for those who can't speak for themselves, and I wanted to share a little bit of truthful information about this so that you could be informed essentially and know how to best make the right decisions for your family, for your children. So I'm going to start by saying that this is my opinion based on science, on what I know about it, on what I've experienced through working with people, through my own personal and sexual relationships with people, both circumcised and not. I wanted to just kind of let you know that this is my view and my perspective. And though I'm very strong about the way I feel about this, you don't have to agree with me. So feel free to make decisions based on your own information and on your own thoughts, feelings, all of that. So I wanted to start by saying that I do not agree with circumcision under any circumstance at any time ever, okay? And that's a really powerful statement. I know that hopefully it doesn't offend anybody, but I feel really strongly about this for a lot of very valid reasons. So first I wanted to start by what circumcision really means for an infant and sort of how the practice itself can create extreme trauma in young children and boys. Before getting into that, I want to start by saying that I do not believe in removing body parts or organs ever. I don't believe in female mutilation. I don't believe in doing circumcision, which is essentially, in my view, male mutilation. I do not believe that this is a sanitary practice or a practice that's necessary. I believe that teaching men and boys how to clean themselves effectively and allowing the human body to remain the way it was designed to be is really important for human health, genital health, health for both men and women, sexual and emotional health. So we're going to kind of touch base on all that stuff. But so essentially what's happening, okay? Nature is very, very wise, okay? Nature makes an apple perfect. A human could never recreate an apple as good as nature makes an apple. If we tried genetic modification, if we tried mutating cells, genes, we can't recreate or improve upon perfection. I believe that the human body, like every other being on planet Earth, is perfect exactly as it was designed to be. I think that things are made the way they are, penises, their shapes, foreskin, all of that to benefit reproduction, to benefit the long-term health and survival of the human species and all of that. So let's just take a look at what happens to a young boy, a baby, when they go in for a circumcision procedure. So due to the age that this is performed, general anesthesia is not possible, okay? It's too dangerous to put a baby under in order to perform this surgery. So this surgery is performed, it used to be performed with no anesthesia. Now it's a localized anesthetic that only removes, if you're lucky, about 50% of the pain. This is a very nerve-central, nerve-heavy part of the human body. It's equivalent to the clitoris for a woman. So when a baby has their foreskin extracted, okay, so it's a very gruesome procedure. Some children don't make any sounds and go into actual shock. Other children, they screech and scream and their heads kind of move around, and it's quite traumatic to actually watch the procedure happen. I've seen the procedure happen. I've done a lot of research about this, and I'm not making it up. It's pretty shocking, and parents that have witnessed it can definitely attest to this being a pretty traumatic event for children. So first of all, it's a heavy, heavy pain thing for a child. Children, because of how small they are, how fresh their skin is, how tender and sensitive they are, how emotionally connected they are at that age, they're a lot more pain sensitive than adults are. So this procedure is a lot more painful on an infant, on a child, on a baby, than it would be on an adult doing the same procedure years later under the same local anesthesia. So why would we subject our children to something that's excruciatingly, traumatically painful and can remain with them in terms of emotional trauma for the rest of their lives? So now let's talk a little bit more going into adulthood. So I actually know somebody who elected to have a circumcision procedure performed in their early 20s after not having been circumcised their whole life. They did this because of women's reaction to their penises, because it was seen as unsanitary, for a lot of personal and emotional reasons that they felt that they wanted this procedure. Though it's a friend of mine and I really strongly suggested that they not go through with the procedure, they did. And now they're dealing with post-traumatic stress and a lot of emotional difficulty because of the loss of sensation that they are now experiencing in their penis, in their sexual experiences. Difficulty orgasming, difficulty with ejaculation, a lot of aftermath pain and things like that, regret about the procedure and what they've done to their bodies. So there's a few things that happen. Whenever we alter or change or remove parts of the human body, especially in infancy, but even in adulthood, what's happening is we essentially send a signal to that baby's mind, to that baby's body, to that cellular memory, that something is wrong with them, that something isn't, that they can't remain complete, something is taken from them. And because of the extreme pain associated with this particular situation, this particular surgery, what happens is it stays with like a very strong emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just like a strong emotional imprint that stays with them for life. So a lot of people witness that after having their boy circumcised, their personality changes a little bit, especially how they connect to their mother. As a mother, as a woman, okay, with children, men have a very powerful force in raising children. I believe that men are critical to all of survival, to happiness, to the health of the world. I believe in complete equality and all of that. But there is a true fact here, and that is that when women are highly responsible for the safety of their children at a young age. They have a strong maternal instinct because they nurse the baby in those very important beginning years. There's a very strong emotional connection between baby and mother that doesn't yet exist between baby and father in those early years. This is because the mother is most often connecting hormonally and physically with the baby daily, regularly. So this child trusts and accepts this woman as their mother and this woman as their caretaker without even really knowing or recognizing too much about the role the father makes in the decisions for them and all of that, right? This is a baby's just feeling, they're not really thinking. So they just know that their mother does all these things for them and that like dad just kind of does what mom wants. That's sort of like the way that it's been seen that the children sort of think, if we were to kind of put thought to it. So when a baby goes through a trauma like circumcision and witnesses or sees that the mother consented this or doesn't intervene or do anything to protect or defend them, they actually become resentful and they feel fearful of the mother and they feel disassociated and they're questioning whether or not that mother has their best intent. How could they let something like this traumatic happen to them? So, we could logicize it all that we want, but there's a lot of mothers that have experienced a withdrawal in their sons, a change in their sons' emotional reactivity to them and the father in general. And some of these things, these inabilities to express love and emotion, this withdrawal from showing emotion or expressing oneself or being loving, this can follow men into adulthood and affect things like their sexual relationships with women or same-sex partners getting older, their relationship with their mothers their whole life and how they view their mother and women in general. A man's relationship to his mother and how much he respects and admires her is very important for his emotional and sexual health later on in life and how he then relates to other women in a more personal sexual way. So this could be really difficult for a mother as well, getting younger. Circumcision procedure is highly linked with young boys refusing to breastfeed, trouble with breastfeeding all of a sudden, rejection of the breast, reclusivity in children, emotional trauma in children, a higher instance of potential AD&D and withdrawal emotional and learning issues getting older, and a lot of other things like this that the links are a little bit gray zone, but there still have been some correlation this way. So it's something to consider for sure. Also, when we remove the foreskin, we remove between 20 and 70,000 critical nerve endings responsible for aiding in ejaculation, possible reproduction later on. So our body has a certain amount of nerve endings everywhere, and our brain responds to those nerve endings because we are born with exactly the right brain receptors for the amount of nerve endings that we have and all of that. So for instance, when I touch, let's say, my cell phone, I can feel it with the nerve endings on my fingers. And my brain responds to these amount of nerve endings with a particular sensation. The same is true for sexual health in men, penile reaction, erectile reaction and signaling, and all of that. So arousal versus ability to alleviate that arousal, in other words, ejaculation and all of that, it all plays a role in together. Sorry, I'm just gonna turn off my phone. But so what this means is the baby's born with a certain amount of brain receptivity reaction to the amount of nerves they have in their entire genital region based on sexual performance to ensure adequate sexual performance later and all of these things as well. So when we remove 20 to 70,000, up to 30, even 50% or more, depending on how the procedure was performed, of that man's sensation of their nerve endings in their genital region, what happens now is the baby's brain has to overcompensate and start trying to resensitize to a lot less nerve endings. And when we're a baby, the brain has a long time to develop the ability to do this on some level, though it never reaches completion. And so proper brain receptivity is never really the way that it was supposed to be if you weren't circumcised to begin with. But as an adult, like in the case of my friend, your brain can no longer become hypersensitive to less nerve endings in your penis. So the ability to ejaculate, the ability to reach completion, full orgasm, the ability to feel satisfied emotionally, sexually, physically, satiated after sexual experiences or masturbation becomes greatly diminished. So having adulthood circumcision is really, especially something I strongly advise against. It is not something you can go back on. So you really want to think this decision out. And for a baby, though there is the ability to overcompensate a little bit for this, there still is never going to be full sensation or full reactivity or full pleasure for that human being ever again. We've taken away 50% of that baby's pleasure for life sexually. Is that fair? I don't believe that that's a decision that and I shouldn't say is that fair, that sounds judgmental, I'm really sorry. But I don't believe that that is just. I don't believe that that is the right thing to do in regards to children, because I think that children should have the right for this. We have the right to our anatomy the way nature designed it without human intervention or any of that as well. So, that's definitely something to consider. Now, in addition to that, so we definitely see a lot more erectile dysfunction in people that are circumcised. We see a lot more sexual dysfunction, sex addiction, the need for actually, and sorry if this is too graphic, but a lot of men that are circumcised versus not, and I can attest to this, having been with circumcised and non-circumcised partners and all of that, a little bit on some level as well, is that it requires more concentration to orgasm for a man that's been circumcised. It usually requires more rigorous sex or sex contact or sexual activity. It usually requires a bit more aggressive sexual activity, or people tend to be a little bit more aggressive. Now, this is not always the case, seriously. It's super general. But it's definitely, this could be a factor in some people and their sexual behaviors and all of that as well. Also, there's been linked a higher instance. Now remember, these are like gray zone. It's really hard to make direct connections with something that happens in infancy to adulthood. But there has been speculation, especially from mothers or people in the family that have witnessed changes amongst children growing up. There's a higher instance statistically of circumcised men being misogynistic, feeling victimized, having emotional or sexual issues with women, things like this. So now, this is really a generalization. There are a lot of wonderful, wonderful, fantastic, amazingly perfect men that are circumcised. So please, if this is your situation, don't feel bad. There is no judgment here. Well, like my appendix was taken out at 12, you know, I can never get it back, so we could hate our parents or we could move on with life and do the best we can. The human body is very resilient, so please don't start regretting something that was done long before you ever had a say, you know. But this is just to share information for new mothers, expecting parents, people that are making decisions that haven't yet been made. It's an informative video. So anyways, also, there's something else that I wanted to touch base on as well, and that is long-term emotional harm, okay, that comes from this. And we don't really realize, but that connection discrepancy that happens with mothers when babies go through a traumatic event like circumcision can often result in men withdrawing emotionally for life, or feeling afraid to connect with others, or feeling inadequate. A lot of men who were circumcised as infants, through different surveys and things like that, actually were said to feel that they'd like to have their foreskin back, that they felt that their parents didn't accept their body, that they felt victimized, or that they felt that this shouldn't have happened, that they wish the decision had been different. So I believe that we should love the human body exactly as it is. I don't believe that there's anything unsanitary, like I said earlier, about this. And there's another benefit as well too. A man who is, and this touches base on a little bit what I was saying earlier, but a man who is natural, who has not been circumcised, essentially during intercourse or other penetrative activities, the man is essentially, again, sorry if I'm graphic, sliding within his own sheath and utilizing, yes, less of the woman or same-sex partner's actual tissue for the sensation reward, okay? So they're essentially sort of rubbing within themselves and putting less demand on your vaginal tissue, on anal tissue if you're same-sex partner, whatever else. So this is actually a benefit for women as well in terms of sexual health. There's a higher instance of women having chronic urinary tract infections, having vaginal irritation or urethral pain or vulva pain or vaginal pain in general during sex, cervical pain. These things when having intercourse with a man who has been circumcised. This is because it's a lot more abrasive, and with the combination of oftentimes a more concentrated or rigorous sexual activity in order to reach orgasm, we're looking at a lot more wear and tear on the female body and on the male body, let's say same-sex relationships. So, you know, this is another thing too, is that it's a little bit more uncomfortable and more painful for a woman as well. And biologically speaking, this has actually been a little bit more problematic for women or the partners of people that are with circumcised men as well. Anyways, a lot of this is speculation, and it's just kind of random information I'm tossing out at you, but this is a really important topic, and so I think that this actually is about a bigger picture here. You know, when we look at it, like in terms of species survival and you know, future generations, if men are having a harder time orgasming, creating more irritation and infection in their partners, having emotional or physical traumas or long-term effects from this, disconnecting potentially from their family with a higher instance of emotional learning disabilities or other things like that as well, if these are even possibilities, even just the fact of a man having more difficulty reaching orgasm when half of his nerves have been removed, this results in more infertility cases, more, like a less likelihood of successful reproduction and strong future generations. So just the same way I don't believe in female mutilation, I really think it's important to leave nature as it intended. I think that this is, you know, and I will do a video about removing organs, like if you have a gallbladder problem, they just take it out. You know, for me, they wanted to take out my bladder. How barbaric is that? You know, just so many different things. Like, I don't believe in cutting out parts of the human body, removing parts of the human body. I don't believe in trying to aesthetize things by changing yourself and your physical anatomy and all of that in a harmful way. So I'm also not a proponent on a whole other topic of things like breast augmentation or butt augmentation or penis augmentation or any of these surgeries where they're adding things in the body, taking things out of the body. Not because there's any judgment. I mean, if this is what you really want to do, go for it. But for health reasons, for health reasons, it's not optimal for the immune system to have random things in the body. And I think that we should really, this is a bigger lesson here. It's a lesson that, the food industry making our food isn't better than us cooking food at home. Cutting off babies' foreskins is not better than leaving their bodies unharmed and natural and aggressed. It's very important that we get back to nature, that we accept the human body as it was designed to be, that we accept all beings as they were designed to be. This is about finding harmony and peace and acceptance with how we truly are. And instead of trying to always fix or change or alter things, when this is a sign that we're taking less control of our health and the health of our families in every way and relying too much on governments, on decisions that doctors are telling us to do, or statistics from who knows what. Like, our intuition here is really important. So I really hope that this helps shed some light on this topic, and I'm sorry if I offended anyone with this video. I have loved men that have been circumcised, all kinds, just the same as I've loved men that aren't. So this is not a particular issue. This isn't going to damage your relationships long term. It's really just something to consider for new infants that don't have the say for themselves. So if you guys have, want to share your opinions on the topic, or you have any experiences, personal or otherwise, to share, feel free to comment in the, in the box below, in the comments and all of that. I'd love to hear your opinions. I'm sending my very best your way, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.